Very good. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last Dubuque County Board of Supervisors meeting for this year. As by consensus of the board, we are not meeting next Monday, and that should be removed then, I think, from our calendar if we could on our website. So we are here on Monday, December 20th, 2021. We are present on the fourth floor of the courthouse, and we also are via Zoom. Welcome to the virtual folks who are with us. At this time on the agenda, we always begin with opportunity for public comment. I will reserve as chair sometime at the end for myself for public comments at our final public comment section. So is there anyone here who'd like to address the board on matters which are on the agenda? You can go to the podium, state your name and address, or wish to make a public comment, you can do so by unmuting yourself or put a note in the chat box or in the reactions column, raise your hand. So we'll see if anyone wishes to address the board. There is no one stepping forward in the boardroom to address the board. Do we have anyone virtually? No, we do not. Very good. We'll move on our agenda. The first item is always held for proclamations, and we don't have any at this meeting. The next is first item for action, which is the approval of our minutes of December 13th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Next on the agenda would be consent items. We are presented with none today. We'll move to the procurement procedures. In our agenda packet was a notice for to take, I believe, bids for card access systems for secondary roads. If we have questions, Darren McCarthy is here from the technology department. Otherwise, we can take action if we don't have any questions.
We had discussed this last year, and we didn't approve it, or is this just finally coming up to fruition, I guess?
Actually, this is a card access system. We started out at the West Campus, and we implemented over at Sunnycrest, and now we're moving it out to Farley, the shop out there. So one card, they have access to the buildings if they need access to it.
Right.
And it is in the budget. It's just this is the time to move to this next stage.
Correct.
So, are there any other questions?
Yes, what's the expected cost for this?
It should come in significantly under budget because we removed like 7 overhead doors, so that's about all I can say. I'm not sure.
Our budget director is here. She may be able to tell us what the budget number is.
I'll tell you what's in the budget. We budgeted $82,500
For all of the systems?
for Farley access, yes.
Oh, for
Farley
Farley.
door access.
Okay.
Come near that, so.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Previous boards had declined this and is actually removed from the original proposal of the Farley shop. So I'll probably be voting against this. Didn't think it was a hard necessity previously, and I'm still at that point.
Okay.
I guess I'm sorry, you're not, the previous board had not.
The previous board actually had, when we did the Farley shop, actually had removed and backed off some of the key card access. Potentially Nathan could expand on that. That's my memory. And we said, okay, let's move forward. And the Farley shop, I think, was probably close to $1 million overall. We just didn't feel it was a strong necessity. I mean, it's a nice system, don't get me wrong. I've been familiar with key card access for quite a few years.
Yeah, I guess I thought it was already approved underneath Anthony's budget.
I think it is approved and in the budget. That's also my memory, is that the board did approve it in the budgeting process. I just have not been a big fan of it.
Oh, okay.
It's not a big deal. It's just my personal opinion.
Sure. Right now, it's open. Anybody can go into the shop out there and walk in most of the time, and so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about that for Durango as well.
Yeah.
And so we had held on that. I do believe we do have security cameras out there, is that correct?
Out in Durango?
No, in Farley.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And so that was things that, we felt were critical at the time. But however the board would like to proceed, I'm comfortable.
I would say, as we discussed during budget, I think it's an important part of keeping our buildings modern, state-of-the-art, and it's the ongoing investment. I wasn't part of a board that set a number of which the budget couldn't exceed for the Farley shop, but I kind of see it as we make the improvements as we can as we go along. So, but I guess we've got our questions answered. Are there others?
Yeah.
I'm good. I would make the motion to approve the, request for bids for the Farley shop access card.
And I will second that motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries 2-1. Very good. Next, we will have public hearings. We have 2 public hearings. Both of those are at the request of the auditor. The first item on our agenda, though, deals with to be certain that we have the proper proof of publication and that the citizens have been informed of the public hearing. Those were in our packet. Does anyone want to take an action?
I will make a motion to approve the proof of publication for the public hearings.
I will second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Our first public hearing is to amend Chapter 22, Rural Address Ordinance. Shall we open the public hearing at this time?
I would make a motion to open the public hearing.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second to go into public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. We're now in public hearing, which means that individuals who wish to ask questions or comment may do so by going to the podium, giving your name and address, or in a virtual world, you can also ask a question or comment through the mechanism of raising your hand or entering the chat comment. I'll turn this over to the auditor for information. Did you want to just do the rural address first?
Correct, yes. This will be
Very
the
good.
public hearing for the rural address ordinance.
Did you want to give any brief summation while we wait to see if anyone wishes to comment?
Again, this is just the amended changes for that portion of US 52 that was, or Route 52 that was also carrying the 136 designation between Luxembourg and Dyersville that was removed. And then this also amends some addresses and road names around the Swiss Valley interchange with the newly created frontage roads. And all affected parties were notified, and the changeover will occur January 1st at midnight.
Have you had any comment or input from the public in response to their notices?
We fielded probably 15 to 20 calls that just wanted clarification on whether or not cities were changing or zip codes were changing. No real issues that we received.
To the supervisors, do we have any comment or question that we wish to ask?
I have nothing.
I do. No.
Okay, so is there anyone, I don't see anyone wishing to address the board, so I'm looking for a motion to close the open hearing, the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
And I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We are now back to the Board of Supervisors, and you did prepare in the packet the information that we need to support a motion to approve if that's the action the board wishes to take.
If the language is on the last page of the ordinance.
Correct. Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the amendment to Chapter 22 Rural Address Ordinance?
I'll make the motion to approve Chapter 22 Rural Address System of Dubuque County.
And I will second that.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Make a motion to suspend the requirement that the ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
And I will second that.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Make a motion that the ordinance be adopted and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the ordinance in the official county newspapers as required by law.
And I will second that.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The
Thank you.
next public hearing concerns Chapter 51, the Election Precincts Ordinance, which I know is a timely issue as well. Does anyone wish to open that public hearing?
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
I will second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Kevin, do you want to give some background on this, please?
Sure. This ordinance amendment will be for Chapter 51 Elections Precincts. This coincides with our proposed precinct map that was created by our GIS department, approved by myself, and then brought before the three of you. This order of operations today would be that we would have the public hearing, and the board would then move forward if they chose to approve the amendments to the ordinance. And then there's also a resolution to authorize the chairperson to sign precinct agreements with the four cities, Asbury, Dubuque, Dyersville, and Epworth. Three of those cities have wards, which is why we need a precinct agreement with them. And the great city of Epworth has eclipsed 2,000 people. And we are also required to have precinct agreements with any city over 2,000. So,
Very good.
23 people over, so. And then we've been working in conjunction with each city, and the Secretary of State requires wet signatures on all documents. So after the chair is authorized to sign today, those wet signature documents will then go back to the cities where they've already approved their precinct agreements, and they will simply throw a signature on there, and then we can get the packet submitted to the state.
So we have two matters before us. The first is the actual ordinance itself. Is there anyone who wishes to comment or has questions, any input on the precinct ordinances? Do we have any questions here?
I do not.
Does there appear to be anyone publicly? And Kevin, did you get any public comment?
I did not receive any public comment.
Okay. Looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So now we need to have action to actually approve the amendment to the precincts ordinance. So that would be our
And that
first.
language is also included with that amendment.
Is it one motion for the entire group?
It's essentially what you did for what you just completed for the rural address ordinance.
I understand that, but you're also asking us for a resolution so that I may sign.
And we'll do that in a
Correct.
second.
Okay, so the first matter is the approving the amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Does anyone wish to take that motion?
I will make a motion to approve the elections precinct amendment.
I will second.
Motion is second to approve the amendments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Now we have the matter of a resolution.
Is that a?
I would prefer that we
Waiving
move
that?
forward with the,
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement the ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll make a motion that the ordinance be adopted and the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the ordinance in the official county newspapers as required by law.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is the matter of the resolutions. Is there one resolution, or do you need one for each?
there is one for all.
Okay. So there's a resolution allowing the chair to sign.
I would make the motion to approve the resolution, regarding the, precincts.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Do we have a sufficient work for you, Auditor, to prepare?
We do, and I appreciate everybody's help. All four cities involved were fantastic, and our GIS and elections departments have been stellar throughout this entire process. So, great job all the way around.
Well, and I give thanks to you as well, because you've kept us informed from the first opportunity it became known to you, I think, as we stepped through all of the changes. So that is greatly appreciated. The next matter that we need to take action on is a notice of public hearing for the Sheriff's Office roof project, which I think is also a budgeted item.
I'll make a motion to approve the notice of public hearing.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the notice of public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. And we go to next to the approval of plats. We have two. Our zoning director, Tammy Henry, is with us virtually. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So our first one up is Stone Quarry Subdivision Plat 4 for a final plat. This property is owned by River City Stone Company and is located 0.85 miles south of the city of Dubuque along Old Massey Road with a total of 151.34 acres surveyed. This property is zoned A1 agricultural and M1 light industrial. The M1 light industrial was approved for an expansion of an existing business, Dubuque Hardwoods, on zoning case number 0918 of 2. The purpose of this plat is to separate out lot 2 to allow the adjoining businesses, Dubuque Hardwoods, room to expand their outdoor storage of their materials. The survey creates 2 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 141.34 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. And lot 2 is a total of 10 acres, and it will be sold to the adjoining landowner to allow for the expansion of their logging business. Lot 1 and Lot 2 will use a 66-foot wide ingress-egress easement off of Old Massey Road, and there were no additions or corrections required for this plat. There are no mortgages on the property. Some of the signatures are 60 days old and over 60 days old, and they included the surveyor, August 31st of 2021, County Planning and Zoning, October 19th of 2021, County Plats Officer, October 19th of 2021, City of Dubuque, October 19th of 2021, Owner's Consent, September 29th of 2021, County Assessor, October 15th of 2021. This plat's been reviewed by myself as Plats Officer, has all the required signatures, and I respectfully recommend approval. So this is the follow-up plat to the zoning case that you had already approved, and this would have been back in September. So now this is the plat coming forward, actually splitting off the land. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have nothing.
If there are no questions, does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion to approve the final plat of the Stone Quarry Subdivision, Plat 4.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next resolution concerns the final plat of Turnus Place, Plat 2.
Yeah.
Tammy?
Yeah, the property is owned by Thomas and Jody Johnson, and it is located 0.49 miles north of the city of Sageville along Mud Lake Road. This has a total of 15.56 acres surveyed. This property is zoned R3 single family residential, R1 rural residential, and C1 conservancy. The purpose of this plat is to create a lot around the existing house on lot 2 to sell to their daughter and to increase the size of their residential lot. The survey creates 2 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 14.31 acres with an existing home and a barn that will remain in current ownership and use. Lot 2 is a total of 1.25 acres surveyed with an existing home and shed, and it will be sold to Thomas and Jody Johnson's daughter. Lot 1 will use an existing residential entrance off of Mud Lake Road, and Lot 2 will use a 20-foot wide access easement across Lot 1 of Turnus Place off of Mud Lake Road. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat. The mortgage holder's acknowledgement is signed and attached. Just one of the signatures was 60 days old, and that included the surveyor of August 30th of 2021. This plat's been reviewed by myself as Plats Officer, has all the signatures needed, and I respectfully recommend approval. This is just simply changing lot lines so that the daughter can have the smaller piece in the back around the home for financing, and it's all zoned residential. Does anybody have any questions?
There are no questions. Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I will make a motion to approve the resolution for the final plat for Turnus Place, Plat 2.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Next, on to action items. The first resolution before us is to approve the hiring of deputies, assistants, and clerks. Screen share has it up now, shared on Zoom. Does anyone wish to take action?
I make a motion to approve the hiring of deputies, assistants, and clerks.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next resolution approves the payments and signing agreements. This will be a subject of our work session beginning shortly. Does anyone wish to table this until that time?
I'll make a motion to table.
I will second.
Motion is second to table until later this morning. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is a resolution to approve the appointment of our county medical examiner. And I believe, Don, you had an updated resolution with a new number. a new dollar amount?
Yes, what you see shared here in the boardroom and also a Zoom is the updated resolution for consideration. And this is correcting the amount to $5,000 per month for those services.
Is that an increase, or was that just a typo in the previous one?
Before, Dr. McKeon and his wife both were appointed as county medical examiners. They were paid in total $5,000. There was a $4,000 and a $1,000 claim each month. Dr. McKeon's wife no longer performs those duties and hasn't, I believe, since the summer. And so CJ has agreed with Dr. McKeon to continue with the $5,000 for him to increase that total. So it's the same amount budgeted, it's just going to one medical examiner versus co-medical examiners.
He has done an excellent job. I would make the motion to approve the appointment of medical examiner Dr. Mark McKeon.
And I will second that.
In discussion, I just have a question, point of clarity. We previously had 2 medical examiners. Now we will have 1. We are not seeking a second medical examiner. Is that correct?
So my understanding, so the Doctors McKeon, they shared those duties, Supervisor McDonough. There is a deputy medical examiner, Dr. Smith, I believe, that has an arrangement with Dr. McKeon, I think, as his backup. So there's 2 in place, in essence. Dr. Smith doesn't get paid, but he's agreed to act in that deputy capacity to Dr. McKeon. So.
Thank you.
You bet.
Are there other questions in discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The last resolution concerns purchase service contracts with Greater Dubuque Development Corporation and Dubuque County Early Childhood. There was also a memo in the file from Ed Raver, which I appreciated. Perhaps it was an email. I can't remember, Ed. Something you sent to us, kind of walking through these 2 contracts. Discussion? Do you have any questions?
These are the 2 we approved last week. This is just a resolution moving forward with them, correct?
I have no other questions, but if Ed has something to provide us, I'm open to hearing it.
This is Ed Raber, and just very briefly, these are the first 2 of several. They take a little time because it's a discussion back and forth with the client, and so these are the first 2 that were ready, working with Stella Rennie, the budget director on the Greater Dubuque Development one, and we hope to have almost all of them on your next board meeting in January. So we're in progress and hope to have these all lined up for you.
Yep.
Does anyone wish to make a motion approving these contracts?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next, we have communications. We received the resignation officials, I think it's his second resignation notice from Ken Rundy, resigning from the zoning board. We've already taken action with a replacement.
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next are open appointments, which is included in every packet, so we can kind of see where we are. Eric Schmeckel sits here in the boardroom, and I'm not asking you to make comment, but we still do have you with recorded vacancies on Watershed.
I thought we just appointed
Watershed
somebody.
Working Group. There were 2. We appointed 1. I don't know why there's another vacancy there. If you could just maybe address that with our staff to make sure that we're correct or that you're aware. Okay? And then I don't know, Tom Berger's with us virtually. There's Ems Advisory Committee with 2 vacancies as well. So maybe there can be some follow-up information with the board communicating about those vacancies. No action is needed by the supervisors. However, does anyone have any other questions or comments from the board members? All right, very good. The last item on the agenda is the personnel requisition, and we do not have any at this time. So we go to public comments, and I will have a public comment, but does anyone else, before we move to the chair's comments, wish to share anything with the board? And we'll hold for a moment to see if anyone wishes to come to the podium or raise their hand in the virtual world. Dawn, you can let me know. No one? Okay, very good. So this is my comment at this time. It has been an honor to serve as chair of the Board of Supervisors for the past year. This is one of the highest elected offices in local government. Only one other woman in the history of our county has ever served in this role. My comments are addressed to my colleagues in the community, particularly to the employees of our county. The success of our democracy requires people to be engaged, informed of the facts, and to step forward to question, comment, debate, and ultimately perhaps seek office yourself. I welcome robust debate, respectful debate about issues, budget, and policy. When respectful, it's a sign of a healthy democracy. The time in which we live is unprecedented, and we can all do better with civil discourse. Today, I call out and shine light on a pattern of behavior from a colleague that has nothing to do with civil discourse or respect. It is, in fact, the opposite. The entirety of my 3 years in office, I have been subjected to harassment in my job as supervisor through insults, belittling comments, and personal attacks by a fellow supervisor. It is not accidental or excusable. It is slowly demoralizing and whittles away at one's confidence. That is the purpose and intended effect. It seeks to assert power and diminish the chosen target. I am neither hypersensitive or thin-skinned. This behavior toward me has not gone unnoticed. Many community members have come forward to me unsolicited over the past 3 years to tell me to not give up. And this is after what they hear and observe only from our public meetings. Sadly, the behavior that they are consoling me about is nothing compared to that exhibited in our closed session, where no public, no video, and no press are present. Last Monday, we had a closed session to discuss the purchase of real estate. It is listed that way on our agenda. Present to witness the toxic comments and bad behavior directed to me were the sheriff, the auditor, and 2 deputies, the director of technology, director of GIS, the county project coordinator, the budget director, the director of human resources. It is humiliating, hurtful, and at this point, entirely predictable. Some attacks are petty and I can defend myself. Others go to one's character, that I am not a leader and cannot lead, that I speak too much, that I closed the door incorrectly. Some repeated attacks are that I am crazy, high, not sober. So why do I bring this to the public today? First, because we have legal liability for this man's actions and language, not only because he treats me this way as a coworker, but it has come to my attention that some of this same toxic language and harassment has been occurring to other county employees. The county has a liability issue that requires immediate and swift intervention. One option that has presented itself to me is to contact the county's insurance carrier to disclose the behavior so that they can assess liability and provide assistance in drafting and implementing appropriate standards and policies. I also speak to bring attention to the fact that there is currently no remedy for this action, for his action. To actually investigate his behavior toward me requires the county to spend thousands of taxpayer dollars and hire an outside firm. I refuse to do that. It is horrific that there is no remedy in our county to call to account a supervisor's behavior. It seems we answer solely to the voters. The final reason for my comments this morning are to distinguish Supervisor Potoff from any of this. In his first year on the board, he has repeatedly apologized to me following incidents where I have been insulted and disparaged by another. I appreciate his support and friendship. This is the last meeting I serve as chair of the board for this term. When we meet again in January, I will nominate Supervisor Potoff for chair. My request for action is that the new chair bring a code of ethics or rules to this body for enactment and enforcement. I have worked hard to rise above this, but now is the time to say enough. And in choosing how to address this, I am opting to do so without anger, but in the spirit of fixing the problem. Does anyone else wish to make public comment? I would ask for a motion to recess for 15 minutes.
So moved.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We stand in recess until 9:45. can leave the door open, officers, deputy, thank you. Get our ambient noise under control up here. Go back into session with the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors. Our first work session is with Eric Schmeckel to discuss the Watershed Program update. I am to be sure to remind you to address the issue of whether or not we have another technician who will be joining our area if we have results of that. So please remember to include that. And then also, we don't want to forget, we want to go back and take action on 2 contracts. So.
Yeah, well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for giving me some time this morning to give you all a Watershed update. It's been a little bit, but happy to be here. Do we want to start going back to what was tabled, the action items of both the Eco Services projects, Tom Shields and Joseph Mosina Trust projects?
Absolutely, we can begin that way. Make sure we get it accomplished then.
So, as you both remember, both of these projects were funded in conjunction with state funding and IDOL's funding through the Stormwater District Commissioners. Both of them were constructed this past fall and both completed here in the last couple of weeks. The first photo there that you see is the Mosina project, I believe. Yes. That was just recently completed. A settlement. Both of them were NRCS grade stabilization structures. The intent behind both of these projects is to capture sediment and nutrients coming off of the drainage area and also reduce flooding so the dikes get built. They both were surveyed, engineered, and designed by NRCS technicians, and they both have been certified as built to spec by NRCS. Both of the projects, surprisingly, and we certainly welcome this, came in under the proposed estimate that NRCS had. So actually funding is less than what was allocated from previous meetings. So that's always a good thing when projects like this come in under budget. I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of me, but that is the Schiltz property and is a larger drainage area, Mosina property. But both really good projects. And both will do a good job of capturing sediment and reducing nutrients in our watersheds. Any questions or comments before we kind of get into the resolution on the projects themselves? Correct, yes. So today we're asking you to sign and support and take action on the 20-year maintenance agreement. County attorney has approved the 20-year maintenance agreement. So both landowners are aware that they'll be signing the 20-year maintenance agreement. Any kind of storm damage, any kind of related maintenance to any of the pipes in the dikes will be their responsibility to maintain those and to make sure it is up to NRCS specifications over the next 20-year period.
I appreciate very much that they have been recorded or will be recorded so that they run with the land, so to speak,
yep,
from a legal perspective, but also that it's there to let folks know that we're doing what we can to protect the county's investment and the state's investment, right? But ultimately, it still will come down to some type of enforcement or awareness by your department. So I don't know what the mechanism is that you intend to do that.
It's typically working with NRCS. They have kind of a rotating inspection process on projects, and they're not out there every year to make sure that nothing has changed. We typically will go out after there was a heavy storm or potential flood damage, potential damage. A lot of times, NRCS will go out and look at projects, and I can make requests that both of the county-funded projects would be on that as well. Myself and our conservation agronomist, Zach Tim, could also be aware of and coming out to those projects as well, too, to make sure that they are maintaining specifications within the intent of the project.
Mike had some
Mike, I need to have you go to the podium, because we won't be able to hear you from there, for the Zoom world.
Also want to comment that so just to let you know about that.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to make a motion at this time to approve? We can approve both contracts with one motion?
They can, okay. I'd make a motion to approve the payments for the Schultz Family Farm LLC and Merlin Mozina Trust Eco Services 20-year maintenance agreements and author.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
The next thing I wanted to address, just real quickly here, as pointed out earlier in the meeting on the Watershed Working Group, I know the Lily Behringer has been appointed on that board. I know they just recently met at Tim Daly's house last week, I believe. Marissa Waldo, I believe, was the other county applicant, and I will chat with Marissa. I'm sure she would be happy to reapply if she did not. So I'll reach out to Marissa as well too, but I believe it was Marissa and Lily that were both appointed from Dubuque County to serve on that.
Do you remember, Eric, if those are one-year terms? I mean, is this going to be?
They are one-year terms. Yep.
Okay.
They are one-year terms. Next, I was going to bring up, which will be starting here relatively quickly, the Winter Roundtable Watershed Series. I believe it was hopefully forwarded to you in an earlier packet, maybe earlier in December or November. But we are doing a Winter Roundtable Series. As you all know, we had 2 very successful farmer field days this past year. We're already planning right now. We're talking to some folks about what our field days are going to look like for 2022. We're planning 3 farmer field days in 2022. But we've had a lot of success getting farmers out at these events. We believe they're powerful. We believe that, farmers need to hear and learn from each other, and we want to continue this process. The idea behind our Roundtable Winter Series, we will have 4 of them throughout the winter. And really, the idea is to have informal settings, to invite farmers and others to come and listen and hear about certain topics that are related to agriculture. We also will have one on basically recreation and water quality to try and impact and try and coordinate more effectively with our recreational groups in the Dubuque County and the work that's going on with our watersheds, flooding and water quality, and working with farmers and others. But the first one is up at the barn in Sherrill. We've tried to strategically locate these throughout the Dubuque County so they're not kind of spread out. But again, it's for more of a discussion with farmers that can take place in an informal setting, not your typical government meeting, to have them come and welcome and have some drinks and appetizers and talk about some of the important issues that I think farmers are dealing with and some of the goals and initiatives that we're involved with. So Marissa and Andrew Waldo kind of been spearheading this as part of their private agronomist in Dubuque County, but Zach will be there along with myself and others. So that's coming up. Our first one will be starting here in January. We'll be doing a press release this week on them and trying to spread the word, radio ads as well too. So it's completely free for anyone to attend, and we'll have different facilitators at each one that we're inviting from UW Platteville, Iowa State Extension, and so forth, that will have speakers kind of leading the discussion. So that's coming up here in just a few weeks. We'll have our first one. Secondly, I wanted to just mention, very grateful. We've been talking about a state technician, I think, for the last 6 months. We've got a lot of projects. We've got the Eco Services funding, NRCS funding, and IDOLS funding. It's been one of the barriers that we've had has been the lack of technicians and the lack of survey and design that needs to go out when we have essentially one engineer that's covering multiple counties. As projects come in and as the list grows, the desire for him to get out there and start looking at these and survey and design. We had a meeting with Susan Kozak with IDOLS. Supervisor McDonough was involved in that meeting and shared our watershed video and the work that we were doing and the funding that's been allocated on behalf of Dubuque County. She was quite impressed. And we have a state technician coming to Upwork. The job has not been posted yet, but should be relatively soon. So that was, thank you for your efforts on that, and it's definitely a much needed position. We have had, our last state technician left in 2015, I'm guessing, and has never been replaced. There's 99 districts across the state of Iowa that are trying to fight for these positions. So we're grateful to have been allocated one, and excited to see what it looks like and get that person in the mix of the watershed work that we're doing.
Where will they operate out of?
They'll operate from the Upworth office, from the NRCS Upworth office. Yep. The buffer proposal. So ideally having another person here, more boots on the ground, it'll allow us to respond to farmers more quickly, that projects don't get put on a list and have to wait months and months and months to get surveyed and designed. The intent is to have another state technician on board to help with projects. So when Zach or myself or a farmer calls NRCS or our watershed office, that we can be there as landowner letters are sent out about engagement of projects and funding available and anything related on their operations, that technician would be able to go out there and meet with them and survey and design the projects as well. I know we've talked about in the past at meetings about the cost of hiring, private consultants. If we have to start using private consultants in the Dubuque County area to get more of these structures built at a faster pace, this hopefully is another step in the right direction, that we're, again, combining our efforts in coordination with our partners, NRCS and IDOLS and FSA and others that have been involved in this from the very start, to go out and survey and design these projects at no cost, at the government cost, but at a cost that would be included in part of our Dubuque County program. So yeah, it's definitely exciting, and I thought by now we might have the job posting listed, but as of today, it still hasn't been posted, but I think it will be soon.
That is great news. Thank you.
The last thing I wanted to touch on before I talk about the buffer proposal is the $100 million that has been, the governor had announced, I think maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. A lot of money. Of course, the state of Iowa is a large area with a lot of challenges, so the money will go out. I know the Iowa Finance Authority will be going, I believe they will be authorizing $75 million of the $100 million, and $25 million will be going to IDOLS for, I think, some of the existing programs through the state. But the Iowa Finance Authority has what's called the Water Infrastructure Fund. That is where the $75 million of the national ARP funding that will be going towards watershed projects across the state. They just started to break it down into categories late last week. It is on their website. I was going to share it real quickly, but Ed and I have already sent some emails out just to try and get some more specifics about it, how it might coordinate with our WFPO flood protection project that's ongoing with JEO right now. Also kind of brainstorming other ideas as we look at our programs that we have in Dubuque County right now and how we might be able to utilize some of that funding. I did not see any kind of application deadline. It looks like everything is kind of on a rolling cycle, so I will definitely keep you in the loop if there's something that we feel like we can be combining our efforts through Dubuque County and the city of Dubuque and the district to try and go for some of these water infrastructure funds.
How would we apply for things? The question really is, do we have a grant writer? Should we be looking to contract hire someone to do, anticipating these grants are going to come open? I don't know how there's any more in your day to do all the things that you're asked to do, but who can we, Mike, sitting there too, from the commissioner's perspective, is there a time, should we be looking at that resource now to find someone to be ready to go to hire a contract grant writer?
The 25 million, when that's allocated to IDOL, that comes through the division, that will come through the funds that are set, the separate funds that are set up right now. And that will come out to each district. I'm not sure how that equation will go, whether it comes by, the way they allocate their state cost share funds, and there's a percentage that each district gets, or that I can't really tell you. It might be first come, first served, and when they come to the district, they'll apply for that. That goes into what they call a farms program, and that's the way that's allocated out. So basically, I'm not sure how a lot of this is going to transpire. But I know the 75 million is going to be, I think it's going to be a grant program as much as I can gather from that.
Just for, that's okay. Just for,
Of course.
Yes.
again, this is Ed Raber. In looking at the application on the Iowa Finance Authority's website, it's not a particularly elaborate application. It's not nearly like the federal application that we applied for last summer with the WFPO. It is, it's accessible to a lot of people. In fact, there may be projects in Dubuque County where a particular landowner may actually be the applicant. I think the thing to, as Eric was kind of alluding to, the thing that's in Dubuque County's favor is the past work that the supervisors have authorized with Houston Engineering and other studies that have created a depth of information so that at a time when applications for resources become available, a lot of it will be about what is the data behind that. And what you've done is you've created a system where we have a lot of data about many different kinds of projects. And just as this ecosystems, things were sort of curated perhaps by our county employees in conjunction with the Soil and Water Conservation District, I think that there's probably just an opportunity for more of that. So I think the discussion is, what does that Houston data engineering mean to us? How can we capitalize on the fact that we have better underlying data about what are the opportunities in most counties in Iowa, and how can we leverage that? And I don't think it's going to be about the actual filling out the applications. Those are pretty straightforward. So this may not be that time where you have to go and do that. I think that we're probably going to be able to do that and potentially even assist private landowners with the data that we have to fill out their own applications if they want, or other cities in the county.
Yeah, I guess I have not. This all just came out in the last few days, and I haven't taken a deep dive into the application process. I do have some colleagues that work for the Iowa Finance Authority now that I've known for several years, and I was planning on trying to schedule a call with them to kind of learn more about the process and the cycle of applications that are coming in. I know they're broke up into economically significant projects. So I think those are the intent behind. I know 40 million of the 75 million, it looks like, goes into the economically significant projects. The watershed protection projects, only it looks like 5 million of the 75 million were in that category. So again, then they have water reuse and then the wastewater infrastructure for unsewered communities. So again, we'll have to kind of look through and decipher which one of these categories. I think the economic significant projects might fit well with our WFPO if we are looking at larger wetland complexes or if we're looking at larger pond-related structures. To me, and tying that into maybe a recreational component, that seems like it. I think they're trying to tie, just reading it quickly here, it seems like they're trying to tie economics and water recreation together into that category. But I'm going to schedule a call with some of the colleagues that work down there and that will be kind of overseeing this. And again, this was just a few days ago this all kind of came out. So I'll definitely keep you up to speed on what I think we could partner and look at how we could potentially apply.
Well, when we began the watershed program, there was discussion at that time too. Would we need a a grant writer? Would we need a contract grant writer? Those are kind of things that I have been asking. Are we looking at that? Are we assessing that? Not trying to micromanage anything, but some of these programs are going to come to me to fund, and my question is, where's the grant money? Not the taxpayer money, where's the grant money?
Mm-hmm.
So we might think we can do all this, but at some point, the shift of this has to be to do the really big projects, have to be that there has to be grant money, and we need to find somebody who's actively looking to get that cash so that we can do some of the biggest projects. Because our county budget, without the referendum, obviously didn't pass, so we're back to looking at the similar budgets that we've been doing. I see grant writing as a way to be able to expand that.
Yeah, and I know when we submitted our budget last year, we did allocate some money for contractual grant writing if the opportunity was going to present itself. I don't believe it was a lot of funding, but I think it was upwards of $5,000 to $8,000. I have to go back and kind of look at that. So I think there's funding that sits with the district that if an opportunity presents itself, I think there's some funding there that we could look at contracting that out.
Would that be something ECIA would be able to help with the grant stuff or not, or just a question, I guess?
Yeah, I think they have done that in the past. So, I mean, I think certainly finding somebody to apply for grants is good. I think one of the things I would remind my colleagues of is we have a $20 million from the federal government that it's a matter of priority of how we spend that. And so we have the opportunity with American Rescue Funds to fund these types of programs. And so while it'd be great to find more funding, funding right now is not necessarily our problem. It's prioritizing and then implementing. And so I'm very excited to hear more about the buffer program whenever we're done with the grant talk.
Yeah, so that I wanted to just hit those topics quickly, and I know I'm getting limited on time, so I do want to move into the buffer strip proposal that it was sent to you, I believe, last week. It was sent to the Soil and Water District Commissioners at their December 13th meeting last Monday, and we had a good discussion there with the commissioners. I think, our first year into some of our existing programs, we've been successful. A number of contracts with different farmers, really focusing on soil health principles, conversion of tillage to no-till, our ecosystem services. Again, we've got projects now that are getting built, and we're utilizing that funding. And I think something that was discussed at our last 28E meeting back in September was the lack of buffers and the lack of our edge of field type practices in Dubuque County. In the last 2 years, we've had zero enrollment in the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP, filter strips in Dubuque. We've had zero applicants in Dubuque County apply for and try and put some ground that is next to perennial waterways and install buffers along these streams. And we talked about the challenge, of course, of high corn prices and making the most profitable decisions for farmers. We feel like the ecosystem services approach, that what we're doing with structural projects, with no-till conversion, with our Stormwater Outcome Fund, and with the Tutera projects are successful, but I think something that is not being addressed is the lack of buffers along our streams, and potentially areas in Dubuque County where contour buffer strips were more common, are less common today, and terraces as well too, where we look at these prairie strips that can be built in fields as well too. Now there's CRP, as if you guys are aware, is a federal program and allows farmers to put ground, enroll it into set-aside type program, is what it's commonly referred to, or tenure. It allows them to get a rental price on that land. We have not had a lot of success in Dubuque County in establishing buffers using the CRP program, meaning that if they would put a 50-foot area along a stream, they could put it into what's called the CP21 and receive an annual payment every year on that property. So we talked about it back in September, some of the challenges that exist with farmers, and how do we effectively communicate areas that are potentially not profitable that are in the floodplain that are potentially, looking at lower yields and low marginal ground. How can we use some of the data we have from Houston to enroll and incentivize farmers to enroll more land into buffer strips and protect our waterways, to create an important pollinator habitat and the ecosystem services that exist with our perennial streams in Dubuque County. So this proposal before you, I am proposing to incentivize farmers to try and get more enrollment into our CRP program, into a buffer program in Dubuque County that would ideally have a one-time payment that would go to farmers if willing to enroll that ground along a stream. Right now we're recommending a 50-foot buffer on both sides of a perennial water body, and to utilize our Houston data with high, medium, and low ground, and to make an additional payment, one-time payment, over the course of a 10-year contract in conjunction with the CRP payment. That's what the proposal is before you today. I've laid it out kind of an example in the proposal that talks about how this would work. We've had discussions with our FSA office in Dubuque. They have supported it, and they have also said that a landowner would be eligible to receive a one-time ecosystem services payment on behalf of Dubuque County and still receive an annual rental payment from them as well. So that's the whole concept here, is to try and get more production, to have start addressing buffer strips throughout all of Dubuque County. We have higher priority areas identified through our modeling program that Houston has done for us, using those maps to determine rates and then coordinate with FSA as applications would come in to enroll them into a 10-year contract and have the county be involved with this as well too. Proposed this at last Monday's meeting. The motion carried unanimous through the Dubuque County Saltwater Commissioners. They fully supported this approach. I do not believe this has been tried in other areas of the state, but I think we're to the point where we're not getting any enrollment. Our areas along our streams, a significant number of them are cropped right to the stream, and the numbers are broken down in the proposal as well too. I won't get into a lot of the numbers today. I certainly can if there's questions on them, but the idea is to look at low marginal ground along our water bodies that's in crops, and take that area and get it into prairie grasses along our streams, and also coordinate efforts with the prairie strip program, where you're putting strips in the middle of fields to slow water down and to collect water, infiltrate water through prairie strips. The CP43 is the rental program with prairie strips. It's growing significantly throughout the Midwest. It takes coordination and enrollment and discussions with farmers to help them understand what it is. But now I believe we can get very competitive with rental prices. If we're somewhere between $150 and $200 per acre on a buffer, plus the CRP payment, I think we're going to be very competitive with rental prices, potentially paying higher than rental prices in some cases. So I think when you start to throw the economics behind a proposal like this and have those discussions with the landowner, ideally the conversation comes up and the enrollment stays high. The commissioners believe that we'll have a high success rate and believe farmers are going to be responsive to this proposal.
Was Wayne Demmer part of the unanimous vote?
Call last week, he had, of course, Wayne had some questions on exactly what it means to manage and graze buffers along the stream. Is it mowing? Is it, other things that has come up? We tried to answer some of those questions with him. He was on the phone at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester with his wife, so he was asking questions, but yes, he was. I don't know if he left the meeting before the vote or not. I guess I have to go back.
He may not have been a vote?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen.
I just know at the annual meeting, he had questions about why he I don't want to put words in his mouth, these are my impressions. He wasn't necessarily prepared to do this. He thinks there may not be applications based on resistance from farmers because, again, they're going to tie up their land, and you're going to want more flexibility, perhaps, to plant land than a commitment of many years. It's one thing to put in a pond and enter into a 20-year maintenance agreement than it is to determine what worked well in a field and what isn't going to work well for the next year with your annual planning. That's what I recall hearing. I think it's important to note, as you said, that farmers and landowners are going to be able to stack payments. So that presents some issue to our program. Can they participate in other programs and get a check for the no-tillage and cover crops and get a check for the buffer strips and get a check for what? I mean, I want, that's going to present an interesting dilemma, I believe, because I want to support farmers, but more I want to change practices. And so I don't want to work with, a few limited numbers of landowners that are taking advantage of multiple things. It's okay in the short term, but to grow the program and to make the change we want to see, it has to have, in my opinion, many people participate. And, if they have funding from another source, maybe we can't fund that. That's discussion that, you're going to have with Mike. That's just a comment I would make as a supervisor. I don't know if, we have other things we want to ask questions or address with that as well.
I think, one, it's voluntary, so that's good. So all the programs that we've put forward are voluntary, and we look for willing participant landowners, farmers to step up. And the three programs that we have going on, as far as the actively right now with our Watershed programs, all have had good participation, and some totally full. And so I'm a big supporter of the buffer program as well, because it's voluntary, and we've already done the work, and we've already invested the dollars in the science to identify what are the most critical areas. And so, this is not going to be, prime crop land that's taken out of production. This is going to be areas that are in the 2 and 4, maybe 6-year floodplain that are constantly under duress and will serve really good in hopefully cleaning up the runoff, therefore eliminating soil erosion and also cleaning up the quality of water. So I'm very excited about this program and a big supporter, and I'm very pleased that the board, the Soil and Water Commissioners, the board approved it. I think that's a good pass, and that's part of why we're in this 2080 agreement, because you work most closely with the farm community, and I think you get it out there just like our other programs. It's new. We're kind of on the forefront of this, and you see what type of participation we get.
I'm all in favor of it also. We're making progress. We got to keep moving that way.
I concur with both of you. And my comments are not intended to be, or shouldn't, I don't believe, I'm not saying I agree. I do agree. It's a program that enhances another opportunity for us to grow the goals of the Watershed program that we've committed to. I'm always just looking ahead to make sure that we're also thinking about, we go ahead and announce this, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Those are questions you will have to answer together with the commissioners. So it's a great idea, and I think it will help make change, definitely.
Yeah, that's the concept behind it, and I think, on the next page of this proposal, it looks at acres, top acres that would potentially come out of production and be put into prairies, and we're looking at a total of it. If every perennial stream, this is not ditches or small drainage areas. It has to have water in the water body year round, meaning perennial. Looking at just over 7,400 acres. If we were able to get a 50-foot buffer throughout Dubuque County and nearly 1,700 acres in crop ground that is in the floodplain along these streams put into buffers. So we have different rankings. I think the commissioners have been very supportive of the funding mechanisms at that between the $150 and $200 an acre. I threw out $75,000. I know we're a few weeks away from budget time, but again, I think that would get determined in the budget session of what that number looks like. And ideally, we, like our other programs, hopefully have a long wait list of landowners that want to be enrolled in this, and that number continues to grow.
We just appointed a young woman, Jacqueline Kerr,
Yes.
to the Conservation Board, but this is her, she has academic background and experience in riparian lands. So
Yes.
she might be, you know, as we look at the advisory board and so forth, but she was well-spoken about the program from just reading the materials, and it matches her experience well, so.
She's very knowledgeable in this. I have had some conversations with her in the past. She was actually featured in our Watershed video. She was one of the folks that was interviewed as well too. So yeah, I know she's done some graduate work in the buffer world as well too. So definitely utilize her and her experience as we kind of continue through advancing all these programs. And I think this is just another leg of the stool, if you will, with our developing and kind of existing programs that we have in place. So.
Yeah, I think that's key. It's probably a key point to understand is that, you know, we have 3 full-time people that we started this initiative with, yourself and the 2 others. And then we've got a Watershed Working Group Board, and then obviously the elected boards that are part of this. And so to add additional programs, you get additional benefits that can still be supported by that structure and those employees. And so I think that's another good reason to move forward with this new initiative. And hopefully it goes well in the first few months, if not few years. And I would love to see another 0 behind that and use American Rescue funds between now and 2026 to really amp up this effort.
Yeah, I will certainly take a look at, again, the funding, you know, the funding potential, I think, with both local and then, you know, from the state level of the ARP funding to see if there's something that we can plug in there and put an application there. Something like this might fit really well. Again, and I don't know how it's going to correlate quite yet with our JEOWF program, but there might be correlation there as well too. But I think the community would be supportive. I would love to roll this new program out in January and start it out and start getting landowner letters mailed out to some of our high priority areas and see what kind of involvement we can get.
And Supervisor Potoff did a great job in the video. You did.
Yeah, you 2 did too.
Certainly did.
Mike did.
I understand. Mm-hmm. I have a family member who does that. My comment, Mike, was, I think when the county starts piling and adding on multiple levels of payment, that is when we need to be certain we're doing that for a reason. Short-term, introductory program, but I don't want to see that we are providing all of the funding into one farm, that there's many needs.
That's something above and beyond what they
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Is there anything else that you wanted to address us about, Eric?
No, that was it for this morning. I know I'm out of time, so thank you again for the time. I'd look to come back in January with a resolution, fully supporting this program, and then we'll be in budget session, I'm sure just a few weeks after that. But I'm grateful for your support of this. I'm glad the commissioners as well. I think it showcases the success of the partnership continuing to work here, so. Thanks for your time.
Good work documenting and presenting this. It's not easy to present new initiatives and to create them, and so, well done.
Thank you, Supervisor Wickham, appreciate that.
Eric, before you go, SILT has a large request for us, for invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Is, Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. Are you presenting that as part of the budget? Is that something that you're working with them on? That's a $1.6 million request for Arpa funds.
I have been involved with conversations with Susan from SILT, and I believe SILT was the lead applicant on that application. We've had a few follow-up text messages and emails, but I have not had a lengthy conversation with her on how, because I believe it's a related buffer program in a lot of ways. I could see it, very much coordinating this effort with some of the efforts with SILT and trying to get some permanent easements put on properties in Dubuque County, and having Dubuque County be one of SILT's priority counties in the state of Iowa. I have not had a lengthy conversation with Susan about this proposal and her program, but I certainly can, and I can certainly be involved with the discussion on SILT's application as well too. I was a supporting project partner on that, but yeah, we wouldn't be the lead on that. But I fully support it, and I'd love to see that project get funded. I could see the buffer proposal and SILT's initiatives really collaborating and working pretty well together.
Okay, those are going to be some of the nature of my questions when we get to that.
Yep.
How you can collaborate.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, next on our agenda is some discussion about the Arpa applications.
Good morning again, Supervisors. This is Ed Raber. Give him some lights here. Your packet is a 4-page, I'm calling it a worksheet, that we worked on at last week's meeting. The feedback I think that we got as staff was that really any and all projects that we have seen that have come to us that have not received funding, or in a small number of cases, some projects that perhaps through the mental health funding or other avenues for their project did not receive their entire request. We've attempted to put all of those projects on here. We've categorized them in the 4 different areas that the federal bill calls out: support the public health response, address negative economic impacts, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, and provide premium pay for essential workers. So with that, within those categories, we've also included a table here. First table in each of these cases is our external partners in the community that have applied for resources, followed by, in the same color code, the internal applications that have come in from Dubuque County departments. So what this table is intended to assist you with, our intention with this would be a tool for you to be able to identify projects across different categories, to see what you were interested in funding or not funding, and to be able to have those sum up into something that would help you understand how much in total and by category, both internal and external if you wished, that you were creating a scenario for. So that's the intent of this. There is one note on here. I think inadvertently in the notes column in the far right, I had noted that there was an internal application that staff had asked for it to be withdrawn. That was unfortunately premature. They had kind of pulled that from consideration in the mental health fund balance discussion that happened a month ago, and was not applicable here. So my apologies there. In other materials, I've tried to delete that note, so please ignore that on this published packet here. So we also talked about this tool. So this is our response back to you to help you and potentially help us down the road figure out, number one, what you would perhaps like to hear from, if there's any presentations, if there is ideally down the road perhaps some commonality that we can easily identify between the three elected officials, and hopefully in ways that we don't necessarily know until you provide some other additional guidance, what those next steps might be, but we're hoping that this is a tool that is helpful for you. Do you have any questions? There's a fair amount to digest with that, I understand. So,
I don't have any questions at this time. I'm just still looking through this. I never really got enough time to go through it the way I wanted to. So.
And that's because it's daunting, I think. It's a large list, so we were not expecting you to just pull those out here. But throughout the week, any of us, Stella, Kevin, Dawn, and myself, were all instrumental in kind of formulating what this looks like ultimately. So you're free to ask any of us questions throughout the week. If you have other questions or things that you'd like us to follow up on, or additional information, we are here at your disposal to help you in this process. So that's all I have.
Yeah. Thank you for organizing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed, Stella, Don, and Kevin, for all the work you're putting into this.
Thank you. I have one last comment on Mr. Schmeckel's note there. Two quick things. I received some feedback from the local Soil and Water Conservation District staff as we were going back and forth, me personally with them about...
We're on to another agenda item.
I know.
In fairness to this, I mean, a bunch of people left that were here for it, so in fairness of...
Eric was highly lauded for his presentation that he gave to the IDOL's assistant director. Most of that happened, I think the influencing focus was Mr. Schmeckel's comments, so I can't thank him enough for how he pulled that together. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ed.
Supervisors, this is Auditor Dragato, if I may. When we move, should the board move next agenda item, which is a closed session, we will be closing the Zoom call down and moving towards internal recording for the closed sessions. And that's just a change on our end as far as accountability and storage of these closed sessions.
So are you expecting everyone to be present in this room?
Correct. Closed sessions from this point forward, anybody who wishes to speak at a closed session will need to be present in the room.
Has that been communicated to the folks who were with us last Monday?
It is not. However, the folks who are, well, my understanding is that the topic of this may be simply related to the three supervisors having internal discussions.
Okay.
Well, I guess the reason I'm pausing is because there are people on Zoom, not present in the room, who were at the meeting last week with the same heading. So I don't know if you've communicated to Megan, if she's going to be in this meeting, she needs to be in this room, to the sheriff. Is he going to be present in this room? You know, that's the question. It's like we've made an announcement that we're not going to use Zoom at all for this, which is fine, but I'm appreciative that Nathan's here. So, you know, who else should be in the room?
Certainly, I like Zoom. I will defer to the auditor on how you want to record the minutes.
This is about care, custody, and control of the closed session.
Called, Joe?
And we'll have other times too.
I don't know that he would have to be here for this, portion of it, to
Oh,
be honest
okay.
with you.
I assume we're not going to solve, and
I think this
I
would
assume
be
we'll
more
have
of
other
just
meeting
an
times.
internal discussion with the three supervisors here personally as to what.
Yeah, and I can send out a more formal, memo indicating that this will be the case moving forward. My apologies for not doing that, to this point for this specific meeting.
So, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed section in compliance
we've got
with
a 3
Ioland.
minutes, necessity break before that, but, sometimes I'm quick. I'll make a motion to recess for 3 minutes.
I'll second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are in recess for 3 minutes. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed section pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.4.
So moved.
And I will second that.
We're in closed session. Let me